She dreamed her own death, and a week later she was murdered. Do your dreams foretell the future? You may never want to sleep again. A white state trooper shoots the town's black mare 6 times. Was it a case of justice, Southern style? And he's a hairdresser to the rich and famous, but his stories about curling their hair will curl yours. Here's how he described Roseanne Barr.
A barnyard animal of the lowest degree.
This is Hard Copy, March 28, 1990.
Hi, I'm Alan Frio. Terry Murphy is on assignment. It began when a white cop stopped a black man for a routine traffic violation in rural Bolton, North Carolina. It ended when the officer allegedly beat the suspect, then shot him over and over again in the man's own front yard. It didn't happen during the Civil Rights Movement. It happened this year. And as Hard Copy's Dave Browdy reports, the victim, Sidney Bowen, had been mayor of Bolton.
It is a road that has no name, just a number. Rural paved road 1800, a 2-lane blacktop running through the middle of nowhere in southeastern North Carolina. Sidney Bowen grew up on this road. He lived along this road. And on February 27th, he died here. 200 people came to the small church auditorium across the street from Sidney Bowen's house. Not a large crowd, you might think, but this represents fully 1/3 of the population of Bolton, North Carolina. They sang and demanded the indictment of the white state trooper who shot and killed Bowen just before 10 p.m. on February 27th, in an incident that has transformed the quiet rural community into a new hotbed of anger and activism.
He was murdered.
Edith Green was with Sidney Bowen on one of the proudest days of their lives. In December 1973, Bowen was sworn in as Bolton's first black mayor. Green was elected to the city council and would succeed him. Now she's one of those organizing marches to protest his death.
That Sidney Bowen was not a violent person. But I don't know what his motive was, that Trooper Morris.
Trooper Morris is Alfred Edison Morris, and he was driving this unmarked highway patrol car the night Sidney Bowen died. Morris followed Bowen's pickup truck into Bowen's driveway. He suspected Bowen of drunk driving, and at 9:41 p.m., he radioed in. The assistance was dispatched immediately and on its way within 30 seconds. But just a minute and a half later, Trooper Morris was back on the radio. Sidney Bowen, ex-mayor and father of 4, lay dead just off the highway. Morris was himself injured, his shirt torn and a gash in the back of his head, a gash that would require 4 stitches to close. What happened in the minute and a half between the radio transmissions and how the trooper got hurt is hotly disputed. The trooper would say he was attacked by Bowen, that Bowen had taken his heavy flashlight away from him and used it as a club, that Morris had no other choice but to empty his 9mm pistol into Bowen. But Bowen's wife was watching from their porch, and his daughter had heard the altercation begin.
Daddy had his hands behind his back, and the police officer was behind him. He was near the car. And he said, Kimberly, go get help. Tell him the law trying to kill me on your...
While Kimberly Bowen ran to a neighbor's house, his wife, who had suffered a stroke years ago that left her barely able to speak or move, tried to get to the 2 struggling men. Was your husband going to kill the policeman?
No way. No way. This is fierce. That's all. Sidney's fierce.
No flashlight?
No.
No weapon?
No.
And the policeman shot him?
Yeah.
There's no question that the 2 men struggled and that struggle became fierce. But what the people of Bolton don't know and what they want an answer to is why Trooper Morris didn't back off. After all, the patrolman knew the mayor lived here, that he wasn't going anywhere. The trooper could afford to wait for backup. But North Carolina Highway Patrol officials quickly cleared Trooper Alfred Morris, though he didn't wait and actually fired 6 shots, killing Bowen.
With Mr. Bowen resisting arrest, Trooper Morris was proper in trying to restrain him and get him under arrest. Highway Patrol is trained to do that, and they are trained to defend themselves if they feel their life is in danger.
That is almost always the explanation that you get in a situation like this. And that explanation is always suspect when you have an unarmed man who's shot down in his yard, not even with one bullet, with at least 5 bullets.
The autopsy report says Bowen was hit in the head several times with a blunt instrument, probably the flashlight. It also showed he was just over the legal limit for alcohol. The trooper still complains of ringing in his ears. Stuck on a political tightrope, the local district attorney, who is running for United States Senate, refused to bring charges himself, but referred the matter to a grand jury. 14 of the 18 members were white. And in Bolton, they say you don't have to look any farther than that to know why the state patrolman was cleared almost before Sidney Bowen was buried.
We are determined that we're going to see Mr. Morris indicted. We are determined that we are going to see justice prevail and that this kind of incident will never happen again.
Although Trooper Morris was cleared of any wrongdoing by both the Highway Patrol and a local grand jury, the FBI is conducting its own investigation of the case. Meanwhile, the citizens of Bolton are planning an 18-mile march from the scene of the killing to the county courthouse this Friday. Organizers hope to attract 10,000 people to the demonstration.
With the shooting death of former Mayor Sidney Bowen, who was killed by a state trooper. Details from BET's Brian McLaughlin.
We're marching for freedom! We're marching for justice! We're marching for Sidney!
200 people marched in Greensboro this past weekend, calling for a new investigation into the killing of Sidney Bowen. He was the first African-American mayor of Bolton, North Carolina. He was shot to death by a white state trooper.
A Columbus County grand jury refused to return an indictment against Alfred Morris. Now, he's the patrolman that shot Bowen 6 times after he said Bowen resisted arrest and threatened him during a suspected drunk driving stop.
The shooting took place February 27th in Bowen's front yard. Flora Bowen, the slain man's niece, is a student at North Carolina A&T State University. And she says even though it was proven he was legally drunk, she still has a lot of questions.
The question that arises in me and the majority of my family is that how can someone be shot 5 times, including once in the back of the head, and it be called self-defense? That's the largest question I have.
Tabitha Bowen is the daughter of Sidney Bowen. She says she wants to see justice done.
Justice would be for me if Trooper A.E. Morris was taken off the force, he was arrested for his action, and that an indictment was pursued. That would be justice for me. That would really be justice.
The Bowens encouraged his crowd to sign a petition addressed to North Carolina Attorney General Lacey Thornburg that calls for another investigation into the shooting. But for now, the Bowen family, along with African-American supporters, must live with the blow the justice system has thrown them. In Greensboro, North Carolina, Brian McLaughlin, BET News.
In New York this week, a state Supreme Court justice...